Welcome to the Her Health Podcast, transforming health for women and girls at risk, where we empower women and girls to take charge of their health and well-being. Join us as we shine a spotlight on issues affecting women and girls' health and explore ways to create positive change. Get ready to be inspired and empowered as we discuss health, advocacy, and empowerment for women and girls at risk. Please be advised that this podcast may cover sensitive topics such as gendered violence. We understand that these discussions can be difficult to listen to. If you feel uncomfortable or need support, we encourage you to prioritize your well-being. Consider exploring our other podcasts if these topics are triggering for you. Resources can be found in the description.
Hello, and welcome to the Her Health Podcast. I'm Alexandra Lazochuk, a master's student in the Community Health Sciences, specializing in public and population health at the University of Calgary. I also work at the Child Studies Lab, where we focus on research that supports children's lifelong developmental health. Today's episode is adapted from a webinar featuring two renowned experts discussing resilience. This presentation can be viewed on the AVA's YouTube channel at avatraining.ca, along with other presentations from the series. Be sure to check out the link in the bio for timestamps and more details about today's episode. We're thrilled to feature Dr. Piotrowski, Associate Professor at the University of Manitoba, whose interdisciplinary research focuses on risks and resilience in children and youth, and Dr. Cameranesi, a clinical psychologist and researcher specializing in improving mental health and resilience in underserved populations and communities. Today, they will cover the history of resilience research and key definitions, resilience traits and processes at individual, family, and community levels, and strategies to build capacity for coping with adversity and promoting mental health. Join us as we explore practical approaches to supporting individuals and communities in overcoming adversity.
All right, well, welcome everyone to the AVA Resilience webinar. We are so pleased to have Drs. Cameranesi and Piotrowski here today with us to speak on their amazing work on resilience. Dr. Piotrowski is an associate professor in the Department of Community Health Science at Max Randi College of Medicine at the University of Manitoba. She takes an interdisciplinary approach to her research that combines developmental psychology, health promotion, and implementation science perspectives. And her colleague, Dr. Cameranesi, completed her training in clinical psychology at the University of Rome and her PhD in applied health sciences at the University of Manitoba. The overarching goal of her work is to improve mental health and well-being of vulnerable, marginalized, and underserved children, youth, families, and communities, nationally and internationally. So thank you both for joining us, and I'm so eager to learn more from your webinar.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, Sarah, and welcome everyone. I'm delighted to have you join us. I don't know what the temperature is where you are today, but it's actually a balmy day here in Winnipeg, relatively speaking. So we always are a bit shocked when the temperature approaches zero or freezing. So yeah, we're quite pleased to be speaking to you from Winnipeg today. Margherita and I have been colleagues for a very long time now, over a decade, I dare say, and much of our work has been done together, and we continue to work together, and that's why we're presenting here together. So I'm going to start us off and sort of do a general introduction and background around resilience, where it came from, what it is. And then Margherita is going to get into some wonderful, wonderful discussion of the work that she has done in this area. And then we are really hoping for audience questions and participation and thought and comments. And so we would really be interested in hearing what you have to say about our topic today. So as I mentioned, I'm going to kick us off today. I'm going to give you a very brief history of where this idea of resilience came from in terms of research that has been done on it, some current ideas swirling around definitions of resilience, a little bit about what are some of the traits and the processes and outcomes that we might recognize as resilience. And then I will hand it over to Margherita, who will give you a lot of, as I mentioned, really interesting and fascinating results based on her own work concerning individual and ecological factors and processes that promote resilience. So when we use the word resilience, it can mean so many different things to so many different people. For some people, it's the idea of being strong. For other people, it's the idea of bouncing back from a difficult or challenging time. For other people, it's managing to cope with extreme difficulty and somehow struggling through. And they honor and respect that struggle as resilience. For some, they consider resilience to mean that you find things to be easy and you do well. Other people see resilience as the idea of being tough and managing hard times despite very difficult hardship. All of these are very valid and very interesting points and ideas about resilience. So how did we ever start studying resilience, and what are we up to today in terms of research on resilience? Well, we have to go quite a bit far back in the day, and we are talking several decades ago. So this is early work by if you know the history of the field of social sciences, clinical psychology specifically, but also anthropology and other fields, you'll know that in the 1960s and the 1970s, researchers like Emily Werner, Norman Garmese, Michael Rudder, and James Anthony were all doing research on children in challenging circumstances. Because, of course, the focus of the field at the time, particularly psychology, was on psychopathology. What is it that knocks people off their track, that amplifies mental health problems or issues? What is it that creates mental health problems in people? And the idea here was, if you know that, then maybe you can help treat them and help them recover and heal. So they were busy studying children in challenging circumstances. Norman Garmese is known for his work on children of parents who were diagnosed with schizophrenia. Emily Werner is known for her work on the children of Kauai growing up in low-income households. And they were expecting to see in these very difficult circumstances children that had problems, and they did. They certainly did. But they were also fascinated to find that there were children that were doing well, children that had adaptive patterns of behavior despite being in these really difficult and challenging circumstances. So these researchers were among the first to start asking, what made these kids different? What protected them from all of the difficulty surrounding them? And given that the emphasis at the time was very much on clinical identification and treatment, they tended to focus a lot on the individual characteristics of the kids that were in their studies, what was going on with them as people. And so they tried to figure out, was it their sociability with other people? Was it their social skills? Was it their creativity, their intelligence, how they did in school? Was it their relationships with their family or friends? And as soon as they started asking these questions, and in these research studies, they were longitudinal. They followed these kids for decades. They did a lot of very careful observation of not only how they did at the time during their childhood years and their adolescent years, but as they grew into adults, and what were the things that helped them adapt and cope and thrive despite this difficulty. So in the 1980s and the 1990s, people started putting their ideas together. There were enough research findings around and enough discussion around the topic that conceptual approaches started to take shape. But in addition to these individual personal qualities, they started to also think about the external factors that needed to be acknowledged. What was going on in their families? What was going on in their communities? And how did these things link together with how an individual did or did not do well in challenging circumstances? So they noticed a bunch of things as they were following people over time. Resilience is not a static thing. It fluctuates up and down. Sometimes you show more, sometimes you show less. It's often accompanied by mental health or other issues. So although the early idea was that resilience meant you have no problems, you're good, regardless of what's going on around you, they soon adopted a more nuanced, complex perspective of resilience, that you can certainly have depressive symptoms, anxiety symptoms, trauma symptoms, and yet also be resilient in a variety of ways. So let's talk a little bit then about what are these core concepts and ideas, and what do we mean when we say the word resilient, if we can even come to an agreed upon shared meaning of that. So the core concept that has emerged over these decades of research is that resilience is positive adaptation despite the experience of significant adversity or trauma. Positive adaptation is pretty broad. It can mean all kinds of different things, and it is deliberately broad because we need to keep in mind that it can be expressed in a variety of ways. Some people have focused on the bouncing back idea, and that implies that when something that is an adverse event or a trauma happens, you do have lower functioning initially. You do have a response to that trauma or that adverse event. As a human being, you definitely do. But then you return to a previous level of functioning that is either equal to, or in some cases, better than your functioning prior to the adverse event. So some people have sort of focused on that idea of resilience. But of course, that's not always the case. That does describe some people, but not others. And sometimes there are few, if any, problems or changes in functioning that are seen either during adversity or after adversity. And so this is another way of looking at and measuring and understanding resilience. People who, as in the original studies, didn't seem to demonstrate any mental health problems or social or academic functioning problems at all. Sometimes, of course, resilience is a mixed bag. We see positive adaptation in some areas of functioning or development. So you do well at school, but it's accompanied by lower functioning in other areas of development, such as substance use, such as violent relationships. And so all through this sorting through of these ideas, researchers have tried to figure out, is resilience a process, something that you learn? Is it a trait, something that you have? Or is it an outcome? Is it something that you get to after going through challenging circumstances? Or is it a little bit of all three things? And so hopefully you will see in the work that we present today that the complexity of this construct is really now being much better addressed by researchers in today's world than it was decades ago. But just to highlight some of the people that have really made their mark and contributed to work in the field of resilience, we have to mention some of these wonderful researchers. George Bonanno, who has argued for a long time that resilience means we see a stable trajectory of healthy functioning despite difficult circumstances. So in his mind, a resilient person is someone who does well, an adverse event happens, and then they just continue to do well. And then the adverse event ends, and you don't really see a fluctuation up or down. Rachel Yehuda has had a very different approach. So a lot of her work has been with Holocaust survivors and their children and their grandchildren. So she has looked at the process of bouncing back from adversity to previous levels of functioning before or better levels of functioning, even when accompanied by mental health issues. And the nice thing about Rachel's work is that she has taken some of the effects of genetic inheritance into account in her work. Anne Maston, a well-known developmental psychologist, has talked about resilience as the capacity to adapt successfully. And so we do see that adaptation concept emphasized here in at least some domains of functioning or development. So as I mentioned, you might be doing well in one domain, you might be doing well in your cognitive domain at school, getting good grades and learning, but you might not be doing well in the emotional domain. You might have a lot of trouble with self-regulation and in identifying and dealing with emotions in other people. And last but not least, Catherine Painter-Brick, who's an anthropologist who has studied resilience in many different countries and cultures around the world, including war-affected areas. And she has talked about resilience as the process of harnessing resources to sustain well-being, and that this is done differently across cultures and in specific settings. So you might not have a lot of resources in some of those very challenging settings, but your ability to harness whatever it is that can help you and to make use of it and help that sustain you through a difficult time is what her work has emphasized. And if you've never heard of any of these researchers before, I strongly encourage you to look them up and take a peek at some of the work that they've done, because their work is really excellent. And it's a wonderful learning experience. As we have noticed, just in my brief comments about the way we've looked at resilience and the way we understand resilience, there seem to be two kind of viewpoints, two kind of worldviews or lenses, and they don't have to be mutually exclusive. One isn't better or worse than the other. It's just two ways of understanding what resilience is. If you focus on healthy adjustment, resilience can be as you see on the left, the line across the top that shows that even though you've had difficult times, your functioning hasn't really changed a lot. You still manage. Whereas other people, of course, have an initial reaction to an adverse event. We are human beings after all. We do have traumatic responses, depressive responses, anxious responses, for good reason. To difficult circumstances, but then we recover and then we acquire adaptive processing. But then other people have focused on problems and challenges. And this is what you see on the right, is that these are the perspective on resilience, that you don't experience mental health challenges or symptoms. You are a solid straight line along the bottom. You don't show symptoms of trauma or stress or depression or anxiety, whereas other people do, and then those gradually decline over time. So as I said, these are not mutually exclusive. We need to look at both lenses as we grow in our understanding of what resilience is and how we should study it and how we should understand it. So I'll just talk a little bit about if we are engaged in positive adaptation in a difficult or challenging circumstance, if we are recovering from a really adverse event in our lives, whether it was in our childhood or in our adulthood, where the heck does this positive adaptation come from? And all of these different researchers have talked about the different sources of resilience. So as I mentioned, some like Rachel Yehuda have included genetic inheritance in their work. So as we have now come to understand that intergenerational trauma is a real thing, and that what happened to your parents and your grandparents and your great-grandparents can be expressed in your genotype, that you can also inherit resilience as well. And this is the interaction between your genes and your environment. So it really depends what is available to you in your specific setting or context. And by what is available, I mean, what are your relationships like with others? What are the actual physical resources available to you? What are the educational resources? What are the social resources? And my learned colleague is going to tell us a little bit more about this in just a minute. Resilience can also be a learned behavior. You can learn, of course, how to cope and adapt better than you have before. And sometimes difficult circumstances teach us things that we would never have learned otherwise. So there is the positive side to an adverse event or experience. It also depends on developmental capacity. So the resilience we expect to see in a 2 or 3-year-old is very different from the resilience we would expect to see in a teen or in an adult or in a senior. And so we have to keep that in mind as well. So given all of this wealth of research, we now realize that we really do need to look at multiple characteristics across different levels. And the more we think about it, and the more careful, conscientious research that we do, the more we realize how big this concept of resilience gets and how many different factors feed into it. Decades ago, we started with the idea of individual resilience, and it's still there. So people have studied all kinds of characteristics that contribute to positive adaptation, and just a few of them are listed here. The notion of family resilience has also surged forward in the past few years. And so aspects of families, how do they operate together as a unit? How do they support? How do they interact? How do they communicate? These things are really key to family resilience, in which an individual may not be doing well, but the family as a group is. And last but not least, of course, community resilience. And all of these different factors impact not only how families are going to do, but how individuals are going to do, and if there's positive adaptation during adverse events or challenging times. I will now turn the floor over to Dr. Cameranesi, who's going to tell us in detail about some of the wonderful work that she has done with resilience.
Thank you, Caroline. So as Caroline mentioned, I'm going to present some of the findings of my doctoral dissertation. I am trained, I have training in clinical psychology, and I completed my doctoral studies at the University of Manitoba, and I decided to focus my dissertation on mental health and resilience in youth exposed to intimate partner violence. I wanted to really integrate different methodologies in this dissertation and different approaches. I'm presenting the results of my dissertation because I think it involves 3 different studies. So a knowledge synthesis project, a qualitative study, and a quantitative study. And I think it really provides a nice overview of how resilience can be studied and how different methodologies and approaches can be used to advance knowledge on resilience in different groups. So my dissertation specifically included a scoping review, which informed the development of a grounded theory study and a retrospective cohort study. The retrospective cohort study was done using administrative data. I don't know where the audience is located, but we are in Manitoba, and in Manitoba we have a very rich rich set of data sets, administrative data sets that we can use and link. So I'll talk about that in a moment. And then I also integrated the results of the grounded theory study and the cohort study into a mixed methods synthesis. So I'll show how how we did that and how that helped us understand more about the resilience of youth exposed to intimate partner violence. So the scoping review involved papers that had investigated and identified different profiles of adjustment in youth exposed to intimate partner violence using a person-centered approach. The final scoping review included 13 cross-sectional studies that had all been conducted in North America. Interestingly, in all studies, at least one profile of adjustment named resilient profile was identified. We were also interested in investigating how resilience was defined across the different studies. And we found that basically across studies, the resilient profile were defined as an absence of adjustment problems or mental health problems. By synthesizing the results of the different studies, we were able to create a model, to develop a model that basically includes all the significant predictors of resilience that were identified across studies. So the model includes individual level factors, which you can see here represented in green, and then family level factors represented in yellow, and as well as community level factors. So we organized this model in a bioecological, I guess, fashion that acknowledges the complexity of resilience, which is influenced by individual level factors, family level factors, as well as community level factors. So among the factors that we identified, some of them, for example, family social support, neighbor safety, also family level factors related to maternal well-being, so caregiver well-being and mental health were very important, and some individual level factors as well, including mental health. So the second study, as I mentioned, was we conducted the study using administrative data. So this was a retrospective cohort study, and we wanted to investigate profiles of adjustment in children exposed to intimate partner violence living in Manitoba. To conduct the study, we used Manitoba population research data repositories. So those are multiple. In Manitoba, we have multiple data sets that are available to use, and they represent data from everyone in Manitoba who has a health card, who's registered to receive provincial health coverage. So the specific data sets that we used include justice data, health data, social service data, education data, and then the Canada Census and vital statistics. So justice data, for example, include data on everyone who has ever been in contact with the justice system. Health data includes any data related to contacts with the health system. So maybe visits to clinics or GPs or hospitals, ER also. Social service data includes data related to receiving social services that are province based. education data on the educational system or any other assessment that is related to education, and then vital statistics and Canada Census. So the first thing that we did for this study, we developed actually a novel definition of prenatal and postnatal exposure to intimate partner violence by linking different data sets. And using that definition, we identified families who had been impacted by intimate partner violence, including mothers and their children. So that was our cohort. So children 6 to 11 included in the cohort, and also their mothers. We using the same data sets, we also extracted different indicators of mental health and physical health for both mothers and children, and also some indicators of family well-being, for example, family type, contacts with CFS, and socioeconomic circumstances. And we used all these indicators to identify profiles of adjustment in the children in our cohort, as well as identify significant predictors of resilience. So we anticipated identifying at least one resilient profile, with including children who were not experiencing mental health or physical health problems. And we also anticipated that some of the family well-being indicators would be significant predictors of the resilient profile. So we also tested for differences between boys and girls. And we used for the analysis multiple group latent class analysis with covariates. So the profiles that we identified are different for boys and girls. For both boys and girls, we did identify, as expected, one resilient profile characterized by absence of mental health and physical health problems. And then there was a multiple problems profile, which included children who were experiencing both mental health or externalizing and internalizing disorders, as well as physical health problems or chronic physical health conditions. Then there was a mild health problems profile, including children who were experiencing only mild health problems, and an externalizing only problem. So children who were experiencing only externalizing problems. For girls, again, we did identify a resilient profile, and the only difference between boys and girls is that in girls, the last profile included girls who were experiencing, instead of externalizing profiles like for boys, severe health problems, so severe chronic health conditions. And an important finding of our study was that maternal physical and mental health was, as we expected, a significant predictor of resilient profile membership for both boys and girls. So our third study included a grounded theory study. For this study, we partnered with 3 inner city organizations in Winnipeg, Willow Place, North Point Douglas Women's Resource Center, and Wabang. And these organizations helped us recruit the sample of families that we included in the study. So they were instrumental in the realization of the project. The main question that we wanted to answer with this project was what coping strategies youth who experience exposure to intimate partner violence use to successfully cope with the challenges that they experience in their lives, including the exposure to intimate partner violence. 13 Indigenous and racialized youth participated in this investigation, and we used a multi-method approach to data collection, including in-depth individual interviews, echo maps, and photo voice projects. So I would like to go through some of the findings for this study. I would like to mention that we analyzed all data using the constant comparative method. And from the data, the model that emerged from the data was very much in line with the most recent research on resilience. So again, youth mentioned different personal qualities and resources in their environment that they use to successfully cope with challenges in their lives. And we again organized these factors by developing a model in line with the bioecological model. So, for example, in terms of personal qualities that the youth mentioned, they mentioned, for example, having an orientation towards the future, having a positive attitude, and also using healthy coping mechanism, healthy ways of coping with challenges. For example, escaping reality through reading and enjoying a nice coffee and some cookies. But also, for example, drawing or journaling. Sarah, for example, age 15, said, I'm really into art and I like doing art, and I've always used art to escape. It was like a healthy way for me to express my feelings. And I think as I get older, the more like I realized like it's good, like I'm happy with my life. I'm happy with the way things happen with my parents, because I wouldn't be who I am if it wasn't for that. I know like there's a lot of things that happen and stuff, but like it's okay. And at the end of the day, I think usually when I'm sad about it, I will be by myself and I will just think, and I will cry sometimes. I write like journaling, and then I start to think about like the good things in my life when I'm feeling better. In terms of more family based resources, many of the youth who participated in this project mentioned how their family members were important resources for them, important and positive role models for them. Again, Sarah said, when my mom finished her PhD, that was a big thing for me, because it was like, my mom, in my head she's my role model. She has definitely shown resilience to me. So her like finishing her PhD, like that was her dream, with everything that was kind of like, you can do it too, that kind of thing. So yeah, for now, I'd say she's my biggest role model. Chloe, age 12, when I ask her, who are the biggest role models for you? Who do you go to when you need help, when you are feeling sad, or when you're experiencing some problems? She said, my mom and my dad. Well, like they're like mentors for me. So when I was learning to draw and things, my mom would show me how, and like she draws and a lot. So I would always admire these pictures. And my dad also did drawings. He also like built things like with wood. He would make wood houses and things, and he showed me how to do that. And I like doing that sometimes. Oh, okay. Another two quotes from Judith and Brian that show how the youth mention different resources in their lives. So usually when I have a problem, I usually ask for help from either my mom or my brother. I mean, my brother's an ass, but he helps me. So you feel that they are there for you. Yeah, especially accepting my sexuality, that was hard to tell them, but then they understand it. Like I like girls, so like really, they were really, when I finally came up to them, maybe 3 months ago, they were really supportive. Same as my dad too. They were all supportive. I was scared at first, but when I told them, it wasn't as bad, because I was crazy that they I was scared, sorry, that they wouldn't like accept it. I used to be insecure about it, but now I'm okay about it. So another example of how parents, in this case, Judith's parents, were important resources for them, and the fact that she felt they accepted her for who she was very important to her. Brian, age 17, he mentioned something completely different that still it shows how the coping strategies that you use are so varied. So I've always loved nature since I was a kid. Like, nature has just always been a spectacle to me. It's very beautiful, and me and my friends always go out and enjoy nature for what it is before it's gonna be gone. If it does, it makes me feel better, like to sit on rocks and stare at the water and enjoy the sounds of the water hitting the land. If I'm stressed out, sad, or mad, or whatever negative feeling, I'll just go there and get positive. So also connection to nature and the environment was very important for the youth. And as you can see here, there is this one that you see on the left is an echo map. So echo maps are basically representations of people or even families' relationships with other people or with other entities in their environment. And we use the echo map as facilitators of the discussion with the youth, especially with younger youth. We started with the echo map, which represented youth resources and important relationships, but also relationships that might have been, not very positive, maybe a bit conflictual, but still important for them. Okay. The last one, I really wanted to add this because many of the youth mentioned, most of them, how their friends were really important to them, an important resource to them. So Sarah, this is a picture I took of my best friend's eye, and it's like because I think she has the most beautiful eyes, and it's also because if I feel that I can always go to her, it's like a friendship and like a connecting. And she understands and she sees like what I'm going through, and you know what I mean. I thought that the eyes represent that the best. So connection of connection with a friend. Here you can see the model that emerged basically from the data. And again, this model is organized as a socio-ecological model. So it represents all the individual factors in gray that the youth mentioned during our interactions with them as facilitators of their resilience. And then the green factors, more family level factors, in yellow, the community level factors, and then in blue, the larger societal factors. And these very much align with the most recent literature on different groups who've experienced adversity. Okay, so at the end of this process, I really wanted to integrate the quantitative and qualitative findings to see whether or not they align, or whether there were some contradictions between what the youth report during our interactions with them and what we found out during the administrative data study. So what you can see here is a very simple representation of what we did, and the two most important findings in my opinion. So the in study number 2, positive maternal, mental, and physical health, we found that was a significant predictor of resilience in the Manitoba families that we included in our study. And in study number 3, the youth mentioned positive caregiver mental and physical health as something that was important for their own mental health and resilience. Similarly, we found that some family well-being indicators were also significant predictors of resilience in the cohort of children that we included in study number 2. And the youth who were included in study number 3 mentioned some family well-being resources and some family well-being and some family resources as important for their mental health and well-being.
Thank you both for such an informative and powerful webinar. I know I learned a lot, and I think everyone here did as well.
Thanks for joining us on the Her Health podcast, transforming health for women and girls at risk. Remember, your health matters, and together we can make a difference. Until next time, remember to prioritize your health and well-being. For more resources and support on issues affecting girls, women, and gender-diverse people, visit our website at avatraining.ca. This is Dr. Nicole Letourneau. Thank you for listening.